Hi, welcome to this part of my review featuring Dungeon Tactics. If you haven't seen part 1 of my review, featuring this diceless video game style tabletop RPG, please check out the playlist in the description below. This time we are going to continue with character creation, starting with duties. A player character's duties reflect their role in the group, as well as the set of abilities that will be available to them as they increase in strength. The player character's primary duty is their overall purpose in the group, with all of their abilities either assisting or being a part of that goal. The player character's secondary duty is a factor in determining their second role in the group, allowing them to flavor their primary duty to the appropriate degree. For example, the Ravager is a striker guardian. The main job of the Ravager is to quickly close the distance and slay their enemies, while having abilities and tools to stay alive and assist allies who may need it. Conversely, the Warrior is a Guardian Striker, refocusing their efforts to protect their allies by dispatching their foes quickly. Similar but different. When it comes to the description of these duties, we have the Controller. Controllers are primarily focused on making the battlefield both safe for allies and hazardous for enemies. All of these different duties have a primary duty-based health. Then we have the Guardian. Guardians are the dedicated defenders of the group, tanking hits that could kill frailer allies with ease. Next we have Strikers, which are the main damage source of the group, dispatching enemies with ease in a hail of fury and raw ability. Next, the Supporter. Supporters form the backline of the group, keeping the others alive and motivated to continue the assault. Let's talk about statistics. A player character's class determines what their statistics will be, allowing them to excel in certain areas while falling behind in others. For example, the Beast Shifter has Perception as the first stat, Vitality as the second, Arcana as the third, Might as the fourth, while the Scoundrel has Perception as the first stat, Might as the second, Vitality as the third, and Arcana as the fourth. The statistics are pretty self-explanatory. Arcana has to do with magical attack, Might with physical attack, Perception is about sight range and initiative, Vitality concerns health points. Then we have details on derived statistics. After determining the initial statistics of the class, determine both their initiative as well as their sight range based on the class's statistics. Initiative is the reaction speed and ability of the player character to quickly snap into action when in a combat scenario. It determines the turn order in battle, with the player character with highest initiative going first. Now, I don't think initiative is very well explained when it comes to how it is determined, because it says here, initiative is determined by Perception plus Max minus Arcana or Might. Luckily, we have a chart with the individual base initiative value for each class. Initiative also doubles as the player character's starting action points for combat. A player character restores an amount of their action points per round based on their perception score as well. So for example, in the case of the Flame Weaver, you have an initiative of 6, starting APs or action points of 6, and 2 AP regen. In the case of the Ravager, you have initiative of 8, starting APs of 8, and AP regen of 3. We will talk more about APs when we cover combat in a future part of this review. Next we have sight range, which is derived from the perception score, and it determines how far the player character can see in the deep, dark depths of the dungeon. Each level of perception increases the sight range by 15 feet or 3 tiles. If a player character cannot draw a line of sight to an opponent or ally, they are unable to target them for abilities. You have a chart here, for example. Perception 4 covers 12 tiles, which would be 60 feet away. And in the case of Perception 2, it covers 6 tiles, which would be 30 feet away. Every class has a set of abilities that will determine their role on the field and in the dungeon. As the player characters increase their power, so will they be able to tap into more of their abilities. At the start of the game, all classes know 2 Tier 0 abilities. Let's talk about some of them. In the case of the Beast Shifter, you have Power Swipe. You swipe with your spear in a straight line in front of you, dealing melee damage. You have all of the details concerning action points expenditure and more technical nuances. Then we have the Earthbinder, with things such as Tremor Spike. You stomp on the ground and summon a spike in a tile 2 spaces away from you, dealing arcane damage. Then we have the Flame Weaver, with things such as Burning Knife. You augment your basic ranged attack to inflict burning on the next target it strikes. Then we have the Frost Lord, with things such as you enchant your axe with Frozen Hunger, so that all basic melee attacks will deal ice damage this turn. Next we have the Huntsman, with Aim. You take aim, making your next basic ranged attack deal +2 damage. Then we have the Priest, with Mending Touch. You touch an allied target, removing any one status ailment they are suffering from. Then we have the Ravager with Out of My Way. You switch places with an adjacent target of equal or smaller size. Then you have the Sage with Telekinetic Grab. Your powers grow stronger and you are able to use the Interact action on any small object within sight. Then we have the Scoundrel with Knife Hurl. You toss one of your knives, dealing might +1 damage. Then we have the Stormcaller with Static Charge. You charge your staff. The next basic melee attack performed inflicts the shock condition. Next we have the Templar with Smite Evil. You make a melee attack that deals Arcana +3 damage. This counts as a magical attack. Then we have the Warrior with Taunt. You aggravate all enemies within your sight range, prompting them to move 2 tiles closer to you. You also have details on starting equipment. No hero enters the dungeon in their skivvies and fists. Player characters enter armed and armored in their preferred attire to prevent any potential fatal mishaps from occurring. Equipment is divided between the weapon and the armor of the class. The weapon represents the primary way the character can attack enemies, either from range or melee. The armor represents how well protected the character is, with certain armors allowing higher protection than others. Equipment is tied to the class, so a priest is unable to use a Templar's Warhammer, while the Templar is unable to use the priest's sling. As the group adventures and loots, they may find certain equipment that their class is able to use or sell at the market for coins, if they return alive, that is. A weapon's damage is based off of the player character's relevant statistic, as well as any modifiers. A weapon with the R# tag has a range value of the number, allowing them to strike up to that distance. That is, R2 would give you a range of 2, R3, range of 3, and so forth. Armor protection is a base reduction in the amount of physical damage the character will take. Magical abilities bypass armor protection. So in the case of the Earthbinder, you start with a Rock Gauntlet. The weapon damage is Arcana + Might. The armor is a Kasaya, which is a value of 0 in armor. In the case of the Priest, you start with a Sling. The damage is Might range 6, with an armor of Cassock, with a value of 0 as well. But in the case of the Templar, for example, you start with a Warhammer. The weapon damage is Might +3, with an armor of Plate Mail, a value of 5. That's more like it. And this concludes this part of the review. In the next part we are going to talk about Dungeoneering. This role-playing game is very thematic, highly thematic. I love that the video game elements, sensibilities, staples are perfectly translated into the character creation process. There was that weird part about initiative. Maybe I missed something. I still think it isn't very well explained, but luckily you have all of the tables to give you the correct values. I also like it that the name of the classes are somewhat original. You have Frost Lord, Huntsman, Flame Weaver. It sounds more thematic. I also like that the duties fall into the expected roles, or rather, party responsibilities of taking damage, healing others, controlling the crowds, etc. Thank you for watching this part of the review, and thank you for your likes and your comments. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that are going the extra mile to support the channel. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. And remember, it is better to roleplay and fail in character than not to roleplay and fail as a player. Once again, thank you, and see you later.